Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live. Bear with me while I'm trying to call here Amanda. So in this live, we are going to be talking about exactly how to respond to all, those difficult people, whether it's your mother-in-law or whether it's, whoever it is. You will know exactly what to say. Also, when it comes to your exes, like having to co-parent with a difficult ex, all those things. So I Tracy, thanks for joining. So let me just try and get Amanda here with us. So Amanda is the toxic slayer. She's an expert in resilience and dealing with toxic people, and she is going to teach us exactly what to say and what to do. Let me put her here. Let me just... Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. So I'm trying to get her here in the live with us. Here. Invite Amanda. Let's say hi, Amanda. Let me see if I can now put you here co-hosting with me. Just a moment. Oh my God, it's not working. I hate when technology is hard, isn't it? Let me try here. So, thanks for your patience and being with me. Let me see if I can. Amanda had here. It's not working. Why doesn't it let me? I'm unable to. This is. Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me just. It says Amanda not in live, but she's in the live. Let me just see here. Amanda, are you able to do anything from your side, like request to join or something? Because I am unable to. Sorry, Tracy. Thanks for. Hi, Kingsley. Thanks for joining. So today we are going to explain to you. Actually, Amanda is going to give us all these tips on exactly what to say when your mother-in-law says something inappropriate or tries to go over your parenting boundaries. We are also going to see exactly what to do in order to be able to co-parent with an ex that maybe is a complicated person, doesn't show up for your child, or shows up at the wrong times, or is trying to always change things, or how not to let people make you do and say things you don't want, and actually enjoy your holidays around difficult people. So let me try once again. Hi, Rama. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. So here I'm trying to get Amanda to join my live, but it's getting complicated. It's not letting me. Oopsie. Got the wrong person. Sorry. Let me try here. Okay. Let me try here once again. Uh, I'm already inviting Amanda. Why isn't it working? Hi, Awa. Thanks for joining. Accept request. Let me see. Is it working now? Yeah. Now Amanda is coming here. I can already see her coming. Thanks everyone for your patience. Let me try and grab here. Oh. Technology. Band Amanda.
Am I on?
No.
Can you see?
I can hear you, but I cannot see you. I don't know if anyone else can see Amanda, or if it's just me that I cannot see her. Oh my god. Shrink.
I can see that definitely see my microphone is working because that's moving up and down.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I can't.
I can see. I can hear. We can hear you, but I cannot see you. I don't know if can anyone tell me in the comments if you can see Amanda, or can you just hear her?
Does that work better?
Now some.
There we go.
No!
Can you see
there
me?
You are. Let me just.
There I am.
Can you see yourself like small or big, or because I see you very tiny? I don't know. Hi, she's birthday, everyone. I don't know. Is anyone seeing Amanda big, or is she very tiny for you? Because for me, she's very tiny.
I can see me tiny. Yeah.
You're tiny.
Let me change it.
Can you maybe hold yourself?
I can't change it.
Let me, because I only have here expand.
Yeah, if I do that, then I lose the screen.
But now I don't see.
I'm expanded. I'm now very big. You're very small.
Now you're very big, but then the rest doesn't work, right? This is all very. Please bear with me, everyone.
Very
this
new
is my
to us. New technology.
Yeah. My first time going live. It's also Amanda's first time on TikTok live, right? We are both new here on TikTok live. Oh my god. Well, I'm just going to put you big there.
Completely fine.
There's one theory, she's expand. Maybe it's because of my effect, the one I have right now. I don't know.
I have no effects on at the moment.
Yeah, I have, because I have the thingy on top with our with the banner, so it might be that. I'm just going to let you talk because you are running the show here anyway, and I just change it from time to time. Maybe that's the best way. So yeah. Amanda,
okay, well you have...
Sorry?
So you asked me some questions. You asked me some questions in pertainment to changing parenting, to what you do, and then we'll go with the flow.
Yeah, and if anyone has questions for us, just let us know in the comments. So let's start with difficult people, and then we go to the exes, which are also difficult, but it's a different conversation. So Amanda, give us some tips. And I was just in Amanda's workshop. She's a resilience coach, and she has many workshops and a lot of resources on how to deal with difficult people. And she just did a workshop where she explained the different ways of saying no in a way that it doesn't make you feel bad, but changes the conversation. So whenever, I don't know, your mother-in-law is saying those things that, are just judgments in disguise, or, just really making you feel uncomfortable. They're saying stuff that you shouldn't be telling people. And whether it's mother-in-law or your own uncle, or there's always weird people on Christmas, right? If you're a mom, you know for sure how it is hard sometimes to deal with this type of people on Christmas. So Amanda, tell us how to say no to people that are difficult this Christmas.
So we do always want to say no to people that are, encroaching on our boundaries. But the word no is a very small word, but in certain circumstances, it can add fuel to the fire. So if somebody says to you something accusatory and you respond with no, and then you then go into over explaining yourself, which is quite often the case with toxic family, you're not going to move the conversation forward, as in you're not going to move the emotions forward. So you have to find some words that I encourage all of my clients to practice in advance. There's lots of reasons why. Practice some words that are responses that don't involve the word no. So it's can you be here at 12 o'clock for this, this, and this? We have made other plans and we can be there at 12:30. Is that going to be okay? Can you do this, that, or the other? Whatever it is that they're requesting of you, you can then say, we have organized this, I have asked for this isn't possible. So you're going to come with a lot of words that is your vocabulary, not my vocabulary, to say no without saying no. And then you're going to do your best to redirect the conversation. So as I said in my workshop a few weeks ago, it was, you can say something, if they say something accusatory or derogatory to you, you can say something along the lines of, that's an interesting point of view. Can you pass me the potatoes, please? Or, I'd never looked at it like that. Could you pass me the Brussels sprouts, please? So you don't answer their question, you diffuse it and say a neutral comment, and then you deflect the conversation to something else, because you don't want to get embroiled in conversations with people that are only there to aggravate you, make you anxious, make you say things that you don't want to say, make you flustered, make you uneasy. We don't want to get into those types of conversations with those people, especially at this time of the year. But not only at this time of year, Christmas is coming, so there's quite often we're in proximity to people that we wouldn't necessarily choose to spend time with, which could be in-laws, family, as Christina just said, toxic exes. It could also be you've got to go to a networking event and you're going to come across a toxic ex-boss or colleague, etc. So Christmas is quite often it has more situations that can lead you into places where you don't want to be. But it does happen throughout all of your life, and we have to have some sort of conversations with ourselves before we're put in these situations, so that we know what we want, how we want to behave. Quite often we go into situations knowing that we're going to feel anxious, but we don't prepare ourselves enough of how we're going to actually cope with the conversation, with the situation, so it has a better outcome for us, because we are the most important people in the world.
Oh, that's such wise words. It's just that sometimes it is a bit hard when you are, because you want it. These are usually when it's your family, right? I mean, it is true what you said. It's not people you would maybe want to spend Christmas with, but there are also some people that you do want to spend Christmas with, right? You want to spend Christmas with your in-laws because you want your children to have access to their grandparents and their uncles and their aunts and all that. But because it's not your direct family, very often it happens that you also are like, your way of seeing the world is different from their way of seeing the world. And especially if you're an expat, if there are cultural differences, all those things. But even if you're not, and it's very hard sometimes to be like really firm, but in a way that is not seen as I'm ruining the holidays for everyone here. I'm such a difficult person, that they don't see me, because that's the truth. We see them as difficult, but deep down we don't want them to see us as the difficult ones, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's fraught with emotions. Like you said, you want your children. This particular scenario is just stated. We want our children to have access to their grandparents, which in this particular case was your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, the uncle, etc. And yes, it does. I say this, and I said this to a friend the other day. it's not just it takes a village to raise a child, it also takes a village to sustain adults. We cannot have just one narrative of conversation. We have to have different types of narrative of conversation to get an understanding of the world that we live in, because the world does evolve. So it's important that our children have access to their grandparents, even if we wouldn't choose to have them at every weekend at our homes, but at Christmas time or Easter or whenever, we will have access to them. Our children will have access to them, and our children will then have access to a different point of view, which is important. So we don't live in an echo chamber. And when we expose our children to those scenarios and we already feel nervous that we don't really want to be in that situation, in some ways we're going to be sending some negative messages to our children as well, because they'll pick up on that tenseness. So it's important as an adult to then say to ourselves, and maybe to your partner, if that's, you're going to the in-laws, and say something along the lines of, okay, this is going to be a difficult situation that we're entering into for me. It's maybe not for you because it's your parents, but for me it's difficult. Can we as a couple can we have some guidelines? So either never leave me alone with the uncle, or we leave at 5 o'clock, we leave at 4 o'clock, no matter what's going. But this is communicated to the in-laws before you go. Oh, by the way, we will be leaving at X time because we have something else to do. And they don't have to explain what it is. If you have something else to do, you have something else to do. Even if that's driving home and the two of you sitting at the top of a hill with a flask of hot chocolate and go, oh, we survived this Christmas, that's fantastic, well done us. It doesn't matter what it is that you are doing after the event. If it's for you two to celebrate and say, we got through it and I didn't feel so nervous, I didn't feel anxious, I didn't say things I didn't want to say, I didn't explain myself, whatever it is. If you do all of these things and you prepare yourself and you be strategic about it, it means you can enjoy that period of time a little bit more. And the more you practice it and the more you're in those situations, the easier they will become.
Yeah, just what you were saying, because we were actually on a live brief before this on Instagram, and you were giving there a tip that I found very interesting, which was like actually using your mouth and making the movements with your mouth so that your brain, can you explain a little bit better how that works with your brain?
Sure. So what it is, it's very similar to actors and actresses. And what we're doing here is, as I just said, we're going into a situation that makes us nervous. So if I use the scenario of an actor and actress, they're going into a, what do you call it, where they want the job. I can't remember the word actually off the top of my head. Anyway, so they're going to audition.
Audition, yeah.
So they are going to practice their lines, their composure, their character. They're going to have that, or they're practicing it. And there's a muscle memory of our mouths. So if you go to, for example, if your default for a long time, because you feel anxious, is to over-explain, your brain's just going to go into overdrive and over-explain. If in the past, when you felt anxious, you've gone into shutdown mode, your mouth is just going to be silent. So your brain is going to tell your mouth what to do before your mouth's even done it. Sometimes, and then because of that pattern recognition that's already gone inside of you, you repeat the patterns at every single time you're anxious. And what I'm trying to ask you to do is practice some words that you say to yourself. That's your vocabulary that comes from your authentic self that says, I'm not going to discuss this further. It shuts down the conversation, but don't say, I'm not discussing this with you and I'm shutting this down. That's not going to bring anything to anybody. It has to be along the lines of, as I said, that's an interesting point of view. Thank you for sharing. That's what you got from that, is it? Okay. Or it could be every time, we talked in the live before about the grandparents perhaps letting the child outside without a coat, which is not what you want to do. The first thing to do is to go outside and put the coat on the child, and then come in and say, by the way, or you could say it at the beginning to the in-laws when you arrive, don't let so and so go outside before I'm there, because we've got a week-long sharing and we're going to take a picture of the sky for 1 week together. Something like that, and say, so he can't go out or she can't go out right now because we're sharing something. So you're sort of controlling the situation, but you're not saying, I need to be there, because that's not. So you have to come up with some stories, some scenarios that protect your peace and that you can control the situation. Because if you're in control of the situation, you're going to feel less anxious and you're going to go less default mode. And then so practice these words over and over, because this is the muscle repetition and the brain remembers what the mouth has said. So if you have stood in front of the mirror going, this is my wording of, that's an interesting point of view. Could you pass me the potatoes? That's an interesting point of view. Could you pass me the potatoes? So the more you practice this wording, the more the brain's going to remember. And you're going to trigger yourself that when you're in this anxious situation, out comes these 6 practice words that you've put on a piece of paper that are stuck on front of the bathroom mirror, and you have practiced just the same as an actor has done, because they are also going into a anxious moment to go and audition. And that's why they practice. And you see it with politicians, you see it with singers. They are practicing before they enter the stage with their mouth, because it's important, because they have to be focused and they cannot let their emotions take control, and they have to be focused on the situation. And it's exactly the same for us. If we are emotionally challenged, we're going to go to a place that makes us act from a place that shows that we're nervous, and then we don't shine the best part of us, and we over explain, as I said, or we act in a way that isn't really our best selves.
You said to practice words. Could it also just be a smile, like smile and can you pass me the potatoes, or is that going to be worse?
That would probably be worse. I would always say something even very small, and like, have you, if it's going to be a condescending, like, that's not the way I brought up my child and you're bringing up your child wrong sort of situation. They say something along those lines. It can be as simple as, okay, that's your point of view. Thank you very much for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. So repeat that. Thank you for sharing. You don't have to take it on board. It's a different time. They brought up their children, your partner, in completely different times. And they may have had more than one child. You may have only one child. You may have more children they had. Every child has a different parent. No 2 parents are the same in the sibling range either. We know this. So just say, that's an interesting point of view. Thank you very much for sharing.
And isn't that...
You don't have to take it on board.
I think my problem is I over explain, because I always feel awkward, because if you say something like thanks for sharing, that sounds somehow unfriendly. On the other hand, they are being unfriendly to you, right? So but it's kind of like difficult to reprogram the brain, isn't it?
Yeah, it is difficult. And you're going to, as I say, if you feel criticized, you're going to be in the mode of defense. And you just said you over explain, and that is your defense mechanism, is to over explain. And we don't want you to do that, because it's not their business. The business is your parenting style to your child. That is the business, not their opinion of your child. And if you over explain when you are feeling attacked, your child is going to see that as well. And then they may replicate it going forward, which we know we don't want them to do. We don't want them to copy patterns that we're uncomfortable with ourselves. So we have to learn some other vocabulary that says, okay then, interesting point of view. Thank you for sharing. Times are different. A variety of different things you can come up with. And this is something I would work on, this at the moment, this is on a live, but, if I'm working with somebody one-on-one, I can work out what their personality style is. We've already done some work, and there's already, after a couple of sessions, normally you get to understand somebody's language, and then I can tailor make some responses that are from their vocabulary that they would use, because I'm using vocabulary that I would use. This is my vocabulary. This is a vocabulary of Amanda that is British, but I've been in a foreign country. I'm an expat for 27 years. So my language is different to an expat who's perhaps only been here in this country for a year or two, or has come from a different place. So we all have a different language. So it's important when I'm giving scripts as well that it's in the language, and you think about it, the language that you would use. How would you like to be heard?
Well, I think those are great tips. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to let us know in the comments. And if not, we can move to the exes, which is also like a huge subject. And if there's anyone who knows how to deal with toxic exes, is Amanda, because she got 2 of them and really bad ones.
I have married two toxic exes, yes, indeed. And I've had a few toxic partners along the way that I never got so emotionally involved with. Yeah, toxic exes are a different thing. There you don't have to worry too much about hurting their feelings, because they are an ex, and they're an ex for a reason, and they're to stay in that zone. So if they're being derogatory or rude, it's like you can shut the conversation down. I'm not discussing this with you. Period. End of. And if they insist, you can repeat yourself. I am not discussing this with you. And if they continue, then you're going to have to say, if you don't stop talking about this, I'm going to remove myself from this conversation. And that can mean that you leave the room. It could mean that you leave the conversation. It could mean that you no longer respond to the emails, but you have to have a boundary in place, and you have to protect yourself as well in these situations. So I'm not going to discuss this with you. I'm not going to discuss this with you. If you continue, I'm going to leave this conversation. So boundaries in place, because you have to protect yourself and you have to be firm.
Yeah, I think, and as you said once in the other email, in the other one we did on Instagram, you said like you don't need a relationship with them, right? It's just if you don't have children, they shouldn't even be part of your Christmas, right? But when they are,
Absolutely.
when you do have children together and you have to co-parent, can you give us some tips on like, maybe typical behavior that happens from toxic exes regarding children and around Christmas time, and how to deal with it?
Yeah, they are. So toxic people, or, I think quite often it comes from perhaps they're narcissistic, and that's the reason you had to get out of the relationship. They will be quite often unreliable in high conflict co-parenting situations. Quite often one of the parents is uncooperative, and that uncooperativeness means that you are unable to have a defined timeline for the day or for the week coming up to Christmas. Now, I'm British, and we don't really celebrate the 24th of December. Now I'm in Europe, and the 24th of December is quite celebrated and the 25th not. So, there's different things that go on, and you need to have it as much as you possibly can in your custody agreement. So this year is an odd year, as in it's 2025, so it's an odd number. It's 2025. So this could be perhaps allocated to the father. And then even years 2024, 2026 would be for the mother on Christmas Day. So you'd have it that on a year even or a year odd, you have the mother or the father assigned to the 25th. And it's not just about the day, it's also about the evening before. So are you actually going to swap the children over, as in, go to daddy's or go to mummy's at midnight? That might not be age appropriate. I doubt it's age appropriate anywhere. But when are you going to swap over the children? Is it going to be the night before? Is it going to be the morning, late morning? What time? Have this drilled down in your custody agreement as much as possible to remove conversations, because conversations with toxic people, we know it's all about them and it's never about the actual situation. So we try to diffuse it in custody agreements as much as we possibly can. Now, you don't have to have a relationship with them. And we discussed in the previous live, didn't we? When they say, oh, can we share Christmas together this year for the sake of the children? No, we don't share children for Christmas and for events unless we are in an actual co-parenting situation where we do things equally. But if you're discussing so much, where should the children be, and there's some discord in there, then how on earth can you say that this is a co-parenting situation? No, you don't share Christmas Day with somebody who's co-parenting against you or tries to paint you out as the bad person who removes time, does nasty things, does unsavory things in front of the children against you. You don't co-parent with those people, and you have to protect your peace and energy. So you don't share Christmas Day or Christmas events with them. You do handovers, and you don't denigrate them in front of the children either. That's also quite important. They may be, in your perception, a terrible person. They may not be a very good parent in your view, but that's not for you to tell the children. That is for them to learn, and it is for you to nurture your children as best you can with the situation that you've got.
Yeah, you were talking before about not letting, that you are just focusing on the children and not really, trying to keep your peace. And it doesn't matter if they showed up. You said that in the other life. It doesn't matter if they show up or not. You're going to have fun with the kids. And then if they show up, it's a nice surprise for the kids. And if they don't show up, then at least they are not disappointed or as disappointed. But how do you prevent yourself from being upset? Because it must boil your blood, right? When you know that your child is looking forward to see their father for Christmas Day and they just don't show up, don't even call. It must boil your blood.
It does. It really, really does. And it did with me in the beginning years. Like, how can you do this, to the children? You're not acting right. You're not acting fairly. But do you see my conversation here? You aren't doing what I want you to do, and you're causing the upset, but you're doing it to yourself. And this is a great part of my work, is forgiveness. And we're not always talking about forgiving the other person. We're talking about forgiving ourselves for being in a situation whereby we can no longer nurture our children that we set out to do at the beginning. We set out to have children in this relationship. It's no longer a relationship, and it's actually this type of relationship. And if we're going to be angry, we're just going to be doing this, banging knuckles all the time with words, money, emotions, and energy. And instead, you can just say, okay, you know what? It's not working out the way I wanted it to work out. I have to forgive myself for everything that has happened. It's not with my intentions that I wanted it to happen, but it has, and I am in this situation. And I have to change the front in ways of, I can no longer add fuel to that fire, because this toxic person is forever stoking a match underneath you to try and light you up and say, oh, you see, they're the problem. This is the reason why we can't co-parent. And so you have to diffuse the situation, and it can be unfair and it can make you sad, but you are being the more stable, rational parent in all of this, and you're showing to your children. So as I said in the other one, when my ex didn't turn up for the children, and it got to the point where we would just dress up because he'd bought them fancy clothes, said that he was going to turn up and then wouldn't turn up. So we'd just get dressed anyway and do fancy things in the house, making colourful plasticine and things, so that the children were doing fun things whether he showed up or not. And as a backup, I did have his mum, doing things with the children as well. So if he didn't turn up, they would have time with their mum, their grandma anyway. So it was me changing the outset. So it wasn't, well, Dad hasn't turned up, isn't your dad, XYZ, and you deserve better than this, and he's not right, he's not fair. You shouldn't be putting all of that on the children. It's not their job to understand the character flaws of their parent at this particular age. Probably they're either old enough to know it, or they can know it when they're old enough.
But doesn't it feel like bottling it down? Like, he just did it again and I'm going to ignore, because you're kind of like ignoring it, right? Doesn't it make you implode?
Yeah, that's where you have to, as I said, I think, you have to have a village of people, even as adults, to talk to about these situations. You cannot be isolated. I think it's important, you may have a husband and a partner, now a new one, and you're dealing with an ex who was maybe toxic. But you also need the parents-in-laws, the friends, the close friends, the distant friends. There's a village of connections that you have around you that you know that you can tap into. And that's really crucial, especially if you've come out of a toxic relationship. Quite often they've isolated you from a lot of people. And it's important that you reconnect with as many people as you can, or have new connections, so that you can have sounding boards, or somebody like myself that can help you understand where you came from and where you want to go to in your life with these emotions. Because indeed, suppressing emotions is really, really bad, because they will surface at some stage, most probably in the most ugly way, in the most awkward of moments that you don't want to happen. So it is really important, yes, to express your emotions somewhere where you're safe, where somebody else who has your back, and say, well, perhaps you didn't handle that very well. That's not in the way I know that you like to handle situations. And how can we change it in the next time? Why did you feel that way? A variety of questions. But indeed, if somebody doesn't turn up for the kids, be the bigger parent, be the bigger person in front of the children, but behind, away from the children, have some sounding boards with some other people that you can express yourself with.
Yeah, I think from what I hear, it's also about, having lower our expectation, instead of being like, I wish it was different. I wish it wasn't like this. Just like, this is my reality. I have zero expectations for this person, or I'm expecting the worst already. And so anything that comes that is positive is a good thing. And whatever it does that is not so good, you're already expecting that. So you're not disappointed, kind of.
Exactly. And it's not just that. I was also saying as well, there's a couple of things, because there's a couple of theories in the world, isn't there, at the moment? There's the one that goes on with just let them theory. Yes, to a point. And yes, if somebody isn't going to be the parent that you want them to be, and they're no longer in your lives, you're going to have to just let them do what they need to do in their lives. You can't change that. But what you can change is, if it's becoming to the point where they're always interrupting plans, they're always coming up, they're not turning up when they should turn up, or they're turning up when they shouldn't, vice versa. Whatever the scenario is, have some evidence of it, because you need to change your custody agreement probably. And that can only come with evidence. You cannot say, well, he turned up 2 weeks ago and wanted the kids and it wasn't his turn. Well, you're just saying something, unless you have some evidence, either by text messages or by photographs, videos, or with friends that you videoed, that there's going to be no evidence of this. So you have to have evidence. And yes, you let them be the parent that they are, because you don't have an influence over them anymore, because they are an ex, and they're an ex for a reason. But also have some evidence. If you feel that this is becoming damaging to the children, have some evidence, and then go down the legal route with that evidence. Words mean nothing. You have to have evidence.
And what do you do when, you have plans? We already discussed this in the other live, but I thought it was a good lesson. But like, you have plans. So as you were giving the example, you had already a dinner scheduled or something, and your ex was supposed to pick up the kids. They don't show up. And now this is really, starting to affect your plans. You have maybe to cancel a reservation, something like that. So he's having control over your life anyway.
Yeah, as I said, I think in my high conflict co-parenting guide on page number 4, it says embrace flexibility, and then flexibility is key. So if you're dealing with a toxic ex and they do change plans as they feel like it and come up with reasons why. So for example, he's meant to collect the children perhaps at 12 o'clock on Boxing Day, and you have a lunch booked for 2 o'clock, a late lunch brunch with a group of friends, or your family even, or maybe a new love interest, whatever, it doesn't matter. But because he was due to have them at 12, so theoretically by 2 o'clock you should be free. 12 o'clock comes and they're not there. 1 o'clock comes and they're not there. You either make the decision in your head beforehand that this is okay, you either plan that you will take the child with you for this particular event, or you have somebody else come along to look after the child, anticipating that the parent will eventually turn up, or that the child will just be taken care of by this particular in-law, family member, babysitter, whoever that you trust. And then you can say, so no matter what the outcome is, you will enjoy your time. Not that if he doesn't turn up and 2 o'clock comes, my day is ruined. If you go into it with that mindset and they don't turn up and your mindset's ruined, you're just adding more fuel to your own burning fire, which isn't the case. We need to move it out. So be flexible and say, well, if he does turn up, this is going to happen. It's going to be great. If he doesn't turn up, we can have this this other situation in place, so somebody else takes care of the child, and that's also going to be great.
But doesn't it feel like an unfair situation that you always have to come across, like always have to plan 2 scenarios just because this person, is trying to screw my life, kind of?
It is unfair. It is unfair, and it's not right, but it's what we've got to deal with. And even if it's, I have lots of things in the world I go, that's not right, that's not fair, that shouldn't be the way, but it is the way it is. And we have to play with the hands we've been dealt at this particular moment. But one thing I would like to say is this is just a period of time. The children will get older, they will see patterns, and they will make their own choices. So it is a time that is difficult. Go deal with it whilst you've got it, and know that this time will pass.
Do you find it hard as a mom of kids who are not with their fathers? Do you find it hard, or did you find it hard when they were little, that they had this idea of their fathers, which did not correspond to the reality, and you knew they were not, because especially girls tend to idolize their fathers, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I've got 4 girls, and they've been through different sets of emotions at different times, depending on where they were in their maturity and where they were in their education, and where they were with their friend group. All of those impact where they are in life. And yeah, they've all been through different scenarios, and it's.
Did they ever
often knew they were going.
Did they ever blame you for not living with their fathers?
At the beginning, yes, but they very quickly realized with other people. So they very quickly realized. So I was in situations actually where their mothers, so their grandmas, were very kind to me and understood the situation that we were in. And I would say one of the mother-in-laws was very, very kind, and took over a lot of what her son wasn't doing, and was very involved in my children's lives. The other mother-in-law wasn't at the beginning, but most certainly is now, and has seen her son for the trueness that he is. So that's when I say that quite often it's be the bigger parent. Yes, it's unfair, but you did have children with this person, and you do have this card set in front of you, so you do have to live with it. But also know that if you're the bigger person and you don't add fuel to the fire, you're modeling better parenting to your children, and this time will pass, and they will see you and they will model how to be a much more balanced adult and not a reactive adult.
And what about those times when your ex does things with your children that are very much against the way you parent? So they, I don't know, perhaps you are against your child spending the whole day in front of the TV, and whenever they are with their father, they don't do anything but watch TV. Or perhaps, right before they brings them back, he feeds them tons of candy, and then they come and are all like, in a sugar rush, or all those things that, or perhaps it was their turn to, like, the kids have to prepare something for school in their weekend, and when they come back Sunday at midnight and it's not done and they need it for Monday morning because the father
Yeah.
didn't even spend any time at home. All those things, how do you deal with it?
It is very, very difficult. I think that if they do spend lots of time in front of the television and it's not your parenting style to do so, this is again something that you're just going to have to suck up and say, because you can't change them. Their parenting style is their parenting style. And when you're not in a cohesive co-parenting state, you, like they, don't have any input on the way that you parent. And they are going to parent in the way that they're going to parent, regardless of what you say. And if you say they shouldn't spend all day in front of the TV, quite likely a toxic person is going to put a TV in the child's bedroom. So that's the type of thing that is going to happen. So you have to come to a place where you don't criticize them, don't criticize their parenting style, and you start to have to put some onus on the child as well. Now, in Europe, in this part of Europe, children who are at primary school shouldn't have homework except for the last couple of years of school. So they shouldn't really have homework. And homework is never normally for the next day. They understand that many parents are from single parent families, and you have to take into consideration, and the schooling system does do so, whereby for whatever reason, they would go to their parent, and that parent may have a family event and they have to be away for the whole weekend, and it's not possible to do the homework at the weekend because of a family event. So quite often homework doesn't come on a Friday for Monday, it's come for a couple of days before. And also now with technology, most schools do put it on the platform of the child's homework, so both parents are informed about the homework. So that is usually less of a situation now than it used to be. But as the child gets older, you can be implementing with them a homework schedule, a homework time. And it can be that even if there's no homework, they have to do revision, or they have to go back over the week's coursework or something like that. So there's things that you can do that introduce healthy education to our children that the other parent may not be modeling, and let them not model it. That's absolutely fine. They will model the type of parent they want to be and need to be, and you need to model the parent that you need to be.
Yeah, I just actually had a friend that she is separated, and something like that happened. So in their case, it's not just the weekends. They have really 50-50. So during the week, the child's also some days. And then there was a homework that needed to be done. And the child actually did the homework, but the father didn't even check, didn't help. So everything was wrong. And then she came home really late, and the mom had to still, help her with the homework. And she was really mad at him. And I think, how do you deal with that, like, because you say we should not be mad at them, like, or we should not act on our angerness, or how do you control that, like, what do you do then when it's
Exactly.
repeated?
I think
It's
one
not
step.
just one time, it's constantly the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's also to have the school understand that it's a 50-50. And if it's a Sunday to Sunday 50-50, or if it's like 50% of the week, Sunday till Wednesday, Wednesday till Sunday, they split the weeks, whatever the split of the 50-50 is. I think it's important that the teachers are aware of this 50-50 split as soon as it happens, because the child will most certainly be going through a transition of the other parent not being in their lives as much, or in a different pattern to before. So it's important that the teachers are aware of this. And you're absolutely right. Yes, you can be angry, but don't act on that anger. There's no point in acting on that anger. Take evidence of it, take pictures of it, ask, that's a bit more difficult. But if the homework hasn't been checked by the father and it's all wrong, that's also a lesson for the child, that they didn't understand what they were doing. And that's even, I know it's hard, but it's also a lesson for the child to know that it needs to do more study in a certain area, because if the homework they're doing is wrong, they need to do some other work somewhere else as well. So in some ways, it is teaching the child that they need to up their game somewhere, either with in this particular subject they may be not so strong, which is we're not strong in every subject, that's normal, but it may be a sign for the mum to say, okay, well, you did the homework. Don't say, I know your dad didn't help you, because that's going to say, well, number one, I don't know why my dad didn't help me. Number two, you're just putting them into a bit of a victim mindset, which we don't want them to do. We want them to feel empowered, and to say, I know you didn't, you handed in the homework and there was a few wrong answers. You know what, over the next week, we're going to reread some material, either the coursework or the books that were given, or whatever the handouts the teachers gave. And if it is within your power of finances, I would hire somebody to do some extra studies with the children in that particular subject, even if it's only for 4 or 6 sessions.
It also
depending
feels
on the age appropriateness.
It also feels a bit like you are the one who's responsible. You are the one who's always like making them study and all that. And when they are with dad, everything is fun. They eat tons of sugar. They just watch TV. They go to Disneyland. So they are the fun person, even though they hardly show up. They don't, maybe don't even give you any money. And your child has this idea that they are amazing and you are the bad person. Whereas, it's the opposite, right? And that they are not supporting you at all. And that they are deadbeats basically, and it must feel very hard, right? I don't know. You had this experience, right? To feel like it's unfair that my child has this great idea of her father, and thinks of me like this when it's quite the opposite.
Absolutely. Yes, I've had quite a few experiences along those lines, and it is frustrating and it is upsetting and it isn't fair. But as I said earlier, this time will pass and they will grow up into being adults, and they will see it for what it is. They will see it for either a lack of care or as a manipulation. They will see it for what it is. And they will still love each parent, which is correct, but they will see it in the true light that it was, and not a manipulated light by one parent or the other, particularly by you, the one that's trying to be the more grounded, reasonable parent. And if you act as the grounded, reasonable parent, when they are older, they will see it for what it is. And it's part of growing up.
Yeah, I'm sure it forces you to really grow up, because suddenly you have a lot more responsibilities. You have a lot to deal with everything by yourself. And at the same time, have to deal with a person, co-parenting with a person who couldn't care less. And then also on top of that, your child blaming you and thinking they are awesome. And you not being able to say, no, he's an asshole. And instead being like, oh, I'm glad you love your father. I think it's really amazing when you're able to feel that.
It is. And also know that when they're teenagers, I know that the teenager is going to love being with the parent that's the fun parent, the sugar giving parent, the no boundaries parent. That they're going to love during a certain period of time. And then when they come back to you, the one that's emotionally regulated, they're going to kick off. They're going to be bad behaved, which is because they feel safe with you, that they can express themselves. And they are feeling frustrated, they are feeling let down, but they don't have the words to be able to articulate their emotions. So quite often they do kick off and say nasty things to the more emotionally regulated parent, because that person can hold space for them. And they can. And again, we come back to having the village, not just as children, but as adults as well. We need that as well, to say, my God, little Johnny said this to me. I can't believe they were so rude, and it's not true. No, yes, you're right. It was rude, and no, it's not true. And when you've both calmed down, you can say, I think you know that wasn't true. I know you said things in the heat of the moment, and I love you. And it's good that we have this relationship that you can express yourself with me. But we do know that this isn't true, that, whatever it is that was being discussed, or you I think you can understand that what you were saying was perhaps convoluted with some emotions or whatever, so you can have that conversation with them in age appropriateness, because a 12-year-old is very different to a 15-year-old.
Is it like that you feel like a punch bag a bit because you were kind of a punch bag in the relationship with your ex, now you left, and now you're still a punch bag for your ex because he does whatever he wants, and you have to still be like the bigger person, and then a punch bag for your child who sees them as a hero and you as the bad one who makes them study?
You can accept that, but I would say that that is being a victim mindset, and everything that has happened, and we cannot change the past. And this is one of the other words that I do use as a parent or in a situation, and that is, I'm focusing on looking forward, not back. It's just 7 little words. And that's the way we should have it in ourselves as well. I'm focused on looking forward, not back. We did have children with these people, and we are not co-parenting in the best cohesive way. We may not ever co-parent in the best way for our children, but we have what we have, and we should not add fuel to the fire that is already burning with the other person. If they're anything like any of my exes, they're not nice people, and we have to diffuse the fire, because as soon as we accept within us this victim mindset and then we deflect, you're just adding fuel to their fire, and they can just rage at you, and they're going to say things that aren't true, and it's going to make it even worse. They're going to say, but you said this back in 2006 when you were wearing something that I asked you specifically not to wear. And you're like, whoa, where did that come from? Because these people do hold these types of things on us, and you go, I don't know what to say to this. What was I wearing in 2006 that you told me not to wear? And now it's in front of the children. What were you wearing in 2006? It's just a ridiculous situation that they seem to like us being in, because then we're all flustered. We don't know what's going on. And we've just added a bucket load of petrol to a fire, and they're going, you see, it was always you. And now you've done it in front of the kids, and they've got an extra point.
Yeah, it's just, well, actually, you have a guide on how to co-parent with difficult people, right? And if anyone wants that guide, just DM Amanda. She also has one. She just had a workshop. I was part of that workshop. It was an amazing workshop on Christmas with toxic people, not just like we discussed here, mostly family members and ex, because of course that's what is more interesting for moms. But she also talks about workplace toxicity and parties, business parties with people that were not very nice to you and things like that. And I really recommend you watch the recording. So if you're interested in that, DM Amanda also. And I don't know if you want to add something else, Amanda.
Yeah, so that workshop was about toxic people, whether it was dealing with toxic family in-laws, you're dealing with toxic exes or toxic ex-colleagues. You can get a networking event and your toxic ex-bosses there, and we all feel backed into a corner, and then we try and defend ourselves, and we come out as over-explaining, blubbering, or silence. And we want to come from a place that actually feels good and empowering within ourselves. So yes, the workshop was really good. It explains a lot of different scenarios, lots of different words you can use to not defend yourself, but respond that's unique and honors who you are, that person that you are now. And also
one part I really liked was you had many ways to say no, like different ways to say no without actually saying no, and like with the exact words to say. I found that really, really helpful.
Thanks. Yeah, it's important, because you can say no, but as soon as a toxic person hears no, they've got alarm bells going. A reasonable person will go, no, okay, because, whatever. But for a toxic person, no just rings alarm bells for them, and then they're going to go even worse on you. So you have to have ways of saying no, because I would prefer, this was being planned, etc. But it has to come from your vocabulary, not from my vocabulary. So when I give words to people on my social media, that's how I would respond. But if you really want to have something tailor-made, your language, your vibe, then that's why coaching exists, because we get into personalized responses that's in tune with your character, with who you are now as a parent or who you are now as a person. And that's really super important. And it all comes back to having that village of adults that's on your side. You can have a group of friends, but maybe it's not enough. Maybe you need somebody who's a little bit more, who can catch your blind side a little bit more. So that's something that, I myself do. And it isn't just about Christmas. Toxic people are in our lives all the time. It's just now at the moment at Christmas, it's a bit more impactful and we just definitely can't get away from them. But they're in our lives, quite often at 12 months of the year.
Yeah. And I mean, I really, if anyone is interested in watching the recording of the workshop on how to deal with toxic people this Christmas, or also the guide you have for co-parenting with difficult exes, toxic exes, then DM Amanda, or if you want to coach with her. And yeah, otherwise, I don't know if you have anything else to add. Then
no, I think that's everything at the moment. But yeah, DM me either here or on Instagram, or you can have a look if you're dealing with toxic people in the workplace. My LinkedIn is more about workplace toxicity.
Okay, well then, thanks everyone who joined us, and have a lovely day.
See you. Bye.